Hello and welcome to Rose Play Season 2, Episode 18, which of course is the season finale and review show for D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die. I'm your host, Aurian MoonRose, and now that that's out of the way, let's get right into the history, the plot, and the story of D4. The history of the game is not too much, but it's alright. I didn't learn much about it other than, of course, it was done by Swery, which is a well-known company in Access Games, which I haven't heard too much about, but I might know them. Now, this is a episodic type game, so it's a season with episodes within it. This one contains a prologue, Episode 1, Episode 2. Within that, they have said that there's no idea how many episodes there are going to be. It's all dependent on the fans' reaction to Season 1 and future ones. So, if you really liked watching a little bit of the game or enjoyed it, go ahead, download it. It'll help get out of Season 2 so we all can find out what happens next, and I will eventually be playing it here again on Rose Play. Also, the last thing I was able to learn from the history was that it has had 1 million downloads since its inception last year, or a year and a half ago. Now, the story and the plot. David Young was once a prominent detective who loses his wife and his memory to the narcotics Real Blood. Real Blood is a drug that apparently, from what I've learned, does weird things to people and possibly gives them powers. After recovering, he learns he has acquired the ability to travel through time, but only with the help of mementos from the victims, or the perps, that he's going after. All he remembers is his wife's final words to him, which was, "Look for D." Now, because of that, he travels back in time to try to meet his wife one more time and catch D. Now, there's a few theories on this, that D might be him, it might be an actual person. At one point in the game, he says, maybe I need to look in 4D, which is the fourth dimension, but D is pretty much the main threat, and he just wants to meet his wife one more time, and try to save her, or I suppose at least talk to her. Now, throughout it, you will travel to only really two places, three, if you kind of count it. There's an apartment building, which he never leaves. He gets help from Amanda, which is a cat, who is also a girl now. But she brings him food and stuff and pounces him. But other than that, when he travels back in time through the mementos, this season at least, he goes onto an airplane. And then in episode 2, he goes back to the same airplane, but it's in the cargo hold. So, sort of like 3 places. Alright, so, now that the history, plot, and story is out of the way, let's go ahead and delve into the presentation and the music of the game. This game is presented in a very unique way. Yes, it's a season. Yes, it's episodic. But instead of treating it like an episode game, they actually treat it like an actual show. Like a daytime drama as General Hospital, As the World Turns. Maybe even something like CSI or whatnot. It starts off with a nice transition into the game where you hear Peggy and then a gunshot. You play it a little bit, and then it does this opening sequence that shows all the characters of the game in their own retrospect. Also, the transitions into it are interesting, especially the time travel aspect. Beyond that, you'll go to, like I said, only about 3 places, so the presentation can get old with the places, but at least they make them interesting with comedy, humor, weirdness, and quick time events. Now, the quick time events, it's not really an action adventure. It's like a mix between a point and click, but quick time. So they tried to make it out there. And for the most part, it worked. The music, on the other hand, there is a ton of music. You get these records that you can buy from Amanda, the cat human person, and then you can listen to them on the record player. There's a lot of records. I don't even know how many to count. So, I mean, the music, really good. It works. Especially the opening. The opening of the game, when they do that title sequence to show off everybody, I enjoyed the music. It's like, yeah, a new episode. Let's play this. And it was also a really, really, really nice touch. I think the music worked well, along presented with how the game plays, it rolls. You have a few small choices into it, too. Like, they'll ask you a question, you'll have 3 answers, and you can sync. Sync means how well you are with David. Like, are you 100% in his mind, or maybe not as much, or maybe you're fourth walling it yourself by asking your own questions, and it affects the rating at the end. There's also a lot of items you can touch and make it push, drop, fall. I always kept using it as psychic powers, which was a nice little joke on my end for the show, but I'm not really sure what they were trying for, if it was just you exploring and David then just doing it without as much movement. Alright. I'd say the music is memorable, at least a little bit of it. The opening sequences and the time travel, when he travels back into time, that's the most memorable. Past that, I mean, it's background music, it's there, it's nice, it adds to it, but it's not a lot of stuff you're going to remember unless you absolutely love the track. Alright, so, now that that's out of the way, let's head to characters and the actors. Now, unlike the last review I did for Murdered Soul Suspect, where I kind of left out the characters and the actors, oh boy, the characters and the actors are the meat of this game. Without them, the story wouldn't be as good, and it would be kind of dull. Now, I did throw actors in here for usually if there's well-known actors, or if it's actors that I know that I can help let you people know about. Unfortunately, there was really only one, but we will get to that. So let's start with the first character, and the main one, Mr. David Young, who, of course, is the private detective who has the power to travel through time to certain events, led with the mementos, of course. He's very dickish. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. He's dickish. He's a great guy for the most part. I mean, he lost his wife, so I mean, I expect that's going to add on to it, and that's fine. But, I mean, some of the things he does, and his gum, the gum habit, he abuses the gum, spits it out everywhere, uses it to clog up steam or cold steam vents, I guess, on the plane for coolant. I want to say he's a nice guy, but at the same time, just, I don't know. But he is fun to watch and play as to hear his thoughts. Peggy Young, of course, is his wife who was murdered. She was murdered in the bathroom. And, of course, David's got a gunshot right here, or a wound or something, so I think there's a bullet inside, and I think that's stopping his memory. But that's also where he travels back in time, is the place of his dead wife. Now, Peggy is in this a lot, actually. Not as a real person, sort of, but more as a hallucination, which makes me wonder if the real blood drug didn't somehow pass powers of her being inside him, because her blood was completely drained, which is what real blood did there, and David sees her. He tells her, she tells him things that just doesn't seem right, and at one point, I swear, either he has a psychotic break, or she just loves torturing him, because he terrorizes by her. Not to mention, you do, at the very beginning of the game, play as, I think, a young Peggy. However, what's funny is at the end of the first episode, start of the second episode, you actually go and play as David, who meets up with this Peggy, who somehow knows about David. Not only does he know about David, but it says, I have 2 dads who protect me. And I'll get into a theory on that here in a few. Alright. The next character is Forrest Kaysen. He used to be a detective for the BPD, the Boston Police Department, and David's partner. He's a human garbage disposal. A black hole. He's worse than I am when it comes to food. Throughout most of the game, he helps you, and he seems kind enough. He does have an issue with Boston and wherever he used to live before that with his wife, but they only mention that a few times. But boy, his side missions. You eat food. Well, he eats food. You just play with it or don't eat it at all. But he'll digest like 5 pizzas at once, a whole fish, and then pull it out. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm seriously surprised the guy doesn't, like, live in a wheelchair or choke on his own food. But I suppose he would be gluttony if he was a sin. I mean, he's cool, but wow. Every time I looked at him, I'm like, really, dude, are you going to eat that? Are you going to digest that? Then there was Amanda. Not really any last name given, but it does kind of hint at the fact that the white cat of yours that also liked Peggy might be the human girl. The eye color, the way she acts. So I'm going to say her last name's probably Young as well, as most people do like to call their pets their last name. Now, side note that I did forget, though, on Peggy. Peggy was pregnant, so she also lost her kid. Or at least they don't talk about the kid after her death. So that could be an interesting plot point later on in a later season, if and when that does come out. But Amanda's feisty. She fights with you in, like, 2 quick time events. And I didn't know any better. I'd say might be sexual tension relief for David, because he gets pounced by her a lot. Alright, next is Derek Buchanan. A marshal, a United States marshal, who is transporting a suspect who supposedly is big on real blood and also might know who Dee actually is. Derek is more of a dick than David, but he has his reasons for it. He seems like he's a good guy. He's just really, really mean about it. And, I mean, his backstory, once you learn it, is a little bit worse than David's. So it's a little understandable. I think they wanted you to try to hate him, but you just can't hate him when you get in further. Now, he was carrying the courier, who the courier is, let me get this right, Antonio Zapatera, I hope. Or they call him, for a nickname, Rabbit. There was a few jokes in it at Rabbit being that he screws as fast as a rabbit. But I think it's because he's the courier and carries around stuff like the rabbit off of Alice in Wonderland. He's crazy. He's bat crap insane. He's got a glass eye, which he doesn't like you staring at, or he thinks you want it. I'm not sure which. But, yeah. He's crazy. He beats the crap out of both you and Buchanan at one point in quick time events. But I kind of like him. I don't know why. Maybe it's his saucy attitude. So, past that is Olivia Jones, who is supposed to be a flight attendant. She hints right away that, oh, I memorized the flight manifesto, but I don't remember you. But she's got a gun. I mean, that's pretty much revealed kind of early on. So, I mean, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler. But she is mysterious. She looks like Peggy. Instead of having one mole underneath her eye, she has 2. So David kind of insinuates onto her the persona of of Peggy. And so I think they'll possibly bring Olivia back in future seasons, just because I think it's going to be a future love interest, or at least like a partner relationship, like in Bones with Booth and Bones, or Castle with Castle and Beckett. I think it'd be an interesting mix if they kept them around as either or both of them, as I guess in both Castle and Bones, you know, they kind of do get together. But other than that, she's kind of dull up until you find out more about her, and I don't want to reveal too much. Lastly is Philip Cheney, who I would make the joke was Liquid Snake, but he's actually the only one that actually knew his voice actors, with Liam O'Brien, which has been well known right now for a lot of anime and stuff, and in a few games besides this. In Final Fantasy X2, he played the main guy villain. I don't remember his name, unfortunately. And then he was also in Bleach. But he's done a lot. Philip Cheney is weird. Not as weird as some of the others, but still weird. He inhales this inhaler that calms him down, and he inhales this red mist. So I'm thinking maybe it's an inhalation version of real blood. But he also has this obsession with this burnt glove for a side quest. But he is an airplane buff. He loves airplanes, apparently. He likes to quiz you on it. Like, in both episodes, there's a side quest for that. And I mean, it is just... It's neat to have quizzes in there, but it's like you do know more by the end of it. Alright. Now that characters are done with, we shall move into the reception of the game. Reception and audiences both all met with positive reviews, especially from the critics. Now, some of the things that they did say was there was attention to detail. And this is true for the most part. I mean, the game is done in a cel-shaded or animated type style. But I mean, everything you touched pretty much, everything that went on, sometimes things in the background, everything had attention. Even the story had some attention to detail. If they mentioned something, you had it. And I agree with why that was one of the main things. They also said that it was positive because of its bizarreness. Yeah, this game, weird. Weird as weird can get. So far out of the two games I played, I mean, Murdered wasn't weird, but, I mean, D4, wow. Most of the characters make a lot of jokes. Some of the references in there, like I said, the food, that was bizarre for Kaysen, but the weirdness made it unique. It made you want to continue playing. And the game depth. Yes, this game, for as weird as it was, as much detail, it really, really had a lot of game depth. I mean, the story is coherent. I mean, most time travel movies or TV shows sometimes don't make a lot of sense right away at the beginning, and this one pretty much does. I mean, it's straightforward, it's out there, but at the same time, there's just so many layers to this game. I mean, I've played it twice now, and I've kind of said, oh, I wonder, and it's made me think more. And I really hope that's where he does continue to do this. They also compared it to the game Deadly Premonition, which I myself have never played. I wanted to, just never got around to it. So if you ever play Deadly Premonition, you're more than likely going to enjoy D4. Or if you watch the review, you probably already know if you enjoyed it and want to play it yourself, or just go through that way. I mean, they didn't really say too much negative for me to try to defend the game. I mean, if it was bad, I wouldn't defend it. But like Murdered, I told you my thoughts on that one. It was average, but it needed a little defending just in case. This one, not so much. I mean, it was kind of that good. And most critics and whatnot did agree with it. Fans enjoyed it. I mean, 1 million downloads. So, yeah. There's not much else to say for the reception past that. Just, it was really good. Alright, so let's dig into my final thoughts. My first and most major thought is there had better be a sequel to this. I don't care if it doesn't get good, where Swery's like, we're not going to do it. Okay, fine, don't. But you need to at least make a season 2 and tie everything up. If it's good, keep doing it. But once it starts not doing good, you better at least make one more and finish it. Finish the story, tie it up so that the audience is happy with you and will go to your next game. That's my main final thought. Beyond that, I question a few things. Did David take real blood? Did Peggy? Did someone inject one of them with it? Is this one of the reasons why I looked for D? Because they were either chasing him down or trying it out. I mean, he's got powers. She had her blood drained. It's just an interesting dilemma of what's going on there. Anything else for final thoughts? The game? Sure. I want to see more of it. I do. Like I said, at least one more. And Kaysen. Yeah, there's a final thought on Kaysen, actually. Kaysen acted a little weird towards the end of both episodes because of Peggy's foster father or stepfather, something around there, which he wasn't as important for me to reveal in the character, so I thought I would reveal him here. He has this like demonic voice or this voice modulator within his own voice, and there's something weird going on there. I personally think it's an older David who couldn't say Peggy and whatnot, so he watches after young Peggy to make sure he gets where she is. And so Kaysen might know more than he's leading on. But there is no fact to this. This is just a thought. But as I'm a very big fan of time travel and the effects that it has, usually when something's done, you can't really fully change it. It's already meant to happen. When he picks up the Federal Marshal's badge, he has glimpses of stuff, and he's involved in it. He doesn't say anything about it, but he's involved in it. So I think everything has already happened. It's predestined in this series, but I could be wrong. So, finally, let's move on to the rating. What I will give it, what others gave it, and see how it stacked up to the actual gameplay for the game. So, as usual, I always like to start with other people for their ratings. So, what did other people think of this game? Well, apparently it must have been pretty good, because it won many awards, more than I could count, because sometimes I get a little lazy at counting. But I at least want to say there was at least 10 to 15 type of awards awarded to D4. Now, as usual, I never give away what sites reviewed it. So in case you want to go look up reviews, you can maybe do that. One of them gave it a 75%, which if we throw it into a quarter standard of 4 quarters, that means this site liked it 70 or 3/4 of the way. Another site gave it 77 out of 100, which again, a little bit more than 75. So yes, a lot of game sites that I was able to find did like it, did enjoy it. So what would I give this game? I would have to give this game a little bit more than they did if we were to switch them over into the 10s, as that's what I like to do, is out of 10. I'd assume they probably have like a 7.5 out of 10, a 7.7 out of 10, and that's just me thinking what they would probably transform it to if they were following my rating system. So what do I give it? I'm going to give it a little bit more than that. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. The gameplay was good, the story was good, the weirdness was good, everything blended together well. Now, is this game for you, though? I might have given it an 8.5, but as we all know, everybody is different. Well, if you like point and click, if you like quick time events, or fail quick time events where you get to see interesting deaths or hilarity ensue, as I didn't really fail in it much for the quick time events, but yes, there are downsides to failing, which are sometimes funny. If any of those sound good to you, the game's probably for you. If not, if you only caught this video on YouTube and you've never watched any of my other videos, well, I have a Let's Play of D4. Look at a few, see if the game's for you. Then, if you like it, go ahead and download it, play it for yourself. Let's help support Swery so we can at least get more to this seasonal, episodic game. So, now, What is next on Rose Play? It will be Child of Light, played on its hardest difficulty. I'm also a little iffy on what I want to do with it. Do I want to play the game fully through with grinding and everything in episodes, which would extend it, or do I want to skip over it? I've asked this question, gotten a few responses, like to know if there's any more. So feel free to leave a comment below in the box, letting me know if you want to see me grind through the episodes, or do it off screen on my own time if I get stuck, so that we can get through it as fast as possible and move on to whatever game is chosen next. So, that's it for this season. I'm your host, Aurian MoonRose. And until next time, remember, keep gaming, never give up, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in Season 3.